Welcome, everybody, to the Connective podcast. Today, I have the honor to speak to the one and only David Lesondak. Most people will never take an anatomy course. They probably will never stand in a dissection lab. They will probably never read a research paper about the tissue that holds us together, that communicates and expresses us, and yet their bodies are working with fascia every second of their lives. David Lesondak has spent his career right there between the people who study this tissue and the people who live inside of it. He's a practitioner, he's an author, and he is a storyteller, a really good storyteller. He's the person who made fascia make sense to people who would have never otherwise found it, with first Fascia, what it is and why it matters, and now with a new upcoming book, The Fascia Connection, written not just for practitioners, but for anyone with a body. And it comes out mid-August, and I'm so excited to speak to you. Thank you for coming. I also forgot to mention you had your last episode, I just had a look, came out a year ago, a podcast called Body Talk, which I was an avid listener, and you inspired me to create Connective. I also...
it's great. That's great.
It's so beautiful to gather the people who speak, who live, who work in the field of fascia and hear their perspectives, their changing views. I highly recommend people go back to and listen through. So today's conversation is about your book, but not just. It's also going to be a conversation about you. So someone who arrived at this work, as I could read here from your book, you came rather sideways. And now I would like you to please fill in the gaps if I've missed anything.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. There was a book in between.
Yes, true.
Called Fascia Function and Medical Applications, which is a academic textbook for the medical and healthcare field. So the first book is like, okay, let me explain this. The second book is, I'm serious. And the third book is, all right, now let me tell you all about it. So the second book actually is got chapters written by subject matter experts. So Tom Myers is in there, Katja Barsh is in there, Carla Stecco, Antonio Stecco, Robert Schleip. I was able to get everybody to write a chapter to their strengths, which both in terms of the tissue, how it functions as a system, the biomechanics, and then different applications. Your teacher, Julie Hammond, did a specific chapter on anatomy trained structural integration, which was wonderful. So, and that's like for people who really want to deep dive, that's who that book's for. And it also was to kind of, since I do work in the medical community here in the United States, it was also a little bit of a chance to stay, to reach those people.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah, that comes through. So did you have a specific person in mind? I remember, and you mentioned this in your upcoming book now too. The first book was with a lot of diagrams, which I found really helpful with. I used it to update my lecture slides, and there's a second edition out of this as well. So I find this really helpful for teaching purposes and to visualize the sometimes quite complex information about fascia. And this book now is a book. Who did you have in mind? I can imagine who you had in mind, but who I would like.
Well, who do you think I had? Who do you think I had in mind?
Your client who comes into your practice, the person who walks in and asks you the questions, because I felt you answered all the questions my clients have when they come into this room here and ask me. Now it's your turn. What did you write it for?
Well, you're not wrong. I wrote it for everybody. Everybody. There needed to be, sooner or later, there was going to be a book about fascia for the general public, for the masses. And I wanted to be the one to write it because I wanted to make sure that it was gimmick free. One of the publishers who turned me down said, well, we're looking for a more focused approach and someone with an robust online platform. And I said, oh, you're looking for a gimmick and someone with a lot of followers. Yeah, no, that's not me. That's really not the book you want. Because it will have a limited shelf life. To me, this book plants a flag that any other book that comes afterwards is going to have to be in opposition to or additive to. As astrophysicist and science communicator Neil deGrasse Tyson says, the more books there are on a particular topic, the less we know about it. So he points to how many books there are on gravity and how many books there are on nutrition. So I don't want there to be a gajillion books about fascia. Different applications, sure, but in terms about in terms of how it's a tissue, how it's a system, what's the fluid, what's the fiber, how does that affect our daily movements? What about chronic pain? What about cancer? What about trauma? What about being too sedentary? In a way that anybody can read and relate to. And if you want to get under the hood and look at the science, the references are there for those too. So it should appeal to everyone.
It does. As a practitioner and teacher myself, I felt validated in many moments, especially when
Oh,
you
wonderful.
spoke. But when you spoke about your moments in your clinic, when you spoke about how you experience over the how many 30 years now you have worked with people with your hands, and that experience you have always carefully. So you used always phrases like "it might," so you never sounded like this is set in stone what I'm saying here. You teach actually approach of being mindful in how we express what we think we know.
Yes.
But you gave me oftentimes the validation of, oh yeah, this is what I'm experiencing here in my clinic too, and I'm glad someone said it. So for me as a practitioner, it is also a very educational book in terms of how can I speak to my clients about this without watering things down, hyping things up, sounding too certain maybe, or being or misleading people just to make them feel comfortable in what I say.
No, I get that. I get that. And with the plethora of online fascia influencers, there's a lot of information that while it's not wrong, it's far from right. So I felt it was really important to have a baseline. So people who are maybe saying, well, what is this fascia stuff I keep hearing about? Oh, here's somebody who knows some things. So now I have a baseline and I have realistic expectations about what this can do for me.
Yeah.
Because that's it's like I quote my friend Rochelle Clausen, who's a practitioner and also runs a wonderful company called Anatomy Skates. She says different things do different things. So
Yes.
depending on what you need, you might need this. People will say to me, well, gee, when I'm seeing you, should I not see my chiropractor? I'm like, no, why not? Go, should I not do this? Should I not do that? It's like, no, don't stop doing the things you're doing. You may not want to do a lot of them in one day because it might overload your body. Or, if I get a structural integration treatment or some sort of fascial intervention pour moi, avec moi, and then I go to yoga, and then I go in my hot tub, and then I go get a chiropractic adjustment. When I wake up the next morning, I may not know what did what for my body when I feel it. So
Yeah.
I sometimes say, you know what? Once you've had a session or two and see what the effect is, and something else, and I don't know that this is in the book per se, but what I often tell my patients also is that sometimes when that tension lets go, I see two reactions. People either have a burst of energy or they get really tired. There doesn't seem to be a lot of in between. And it's like, you know what? If you're done for the day, be done for the day. If you want to go out and go to the gym because you're feeling, whoa, yeah, then do that. Just listen to your body after the session and do what feels right.
Yeah. 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 You explain, I think, 4 effects and how they also can 2 of them can happen together. People are feeling it the next day and people are feeling it immediately. I love that too. It was a lot of observations from your clinical life came into that. So it was very interesting from a practitioner's perspective, but I think people who are undergo, who come into my room here or work with me through manual therapy, structure integration or movement, I would like to give them the book, especially the chapter where you talk about how the fascia work affects you and what you can expect. And I try to communicate it similarly, and that's why I felt so validated. I'm glad I'm doing the right thing here and talk about the right things. So I definitely will have this book lying here and will pass this on.
Oh, thank you.
You said earlier some fascia approaches are not incorrect, but they're far from right. What do you mean with that?
Well, I've seen a lot of videos, people send me things from various different social media sources.
Mm.
And so I sometimes see information being presented less than accurately. So they may take one piece of our understanding of fascia science and then make a whole lot of extrapolations around it.
Mhm.
Or, I see that a lot with emotional releases and trauma.
Mhm.
Not every fascia session has to involve that. Some never do. There's no
Yeah.
right or wrong. And it doesn't mean that just because you've had physical trauma that having a emotional release is going to, it may make you more in touch with where that is in your body, but it's not necessarily like waving a magic wand and you get to start all over again trauma free. That's not how life works. So I
Mhm.
wanted people to have realistic expectations about these things.
Yeah.
And I think we've all seen certain, your people say, what do you think of this fascia tool? What do you think of that fascial tool?
Mhm.
And a lot of them I see honestly seem a little too aggressive to me.
Yeah.
And that's not okay,
Mhm.
particularly in the more sensitive areas. So, I try to bring those points home, and I'm not gonna castigate anybody for not knowing what they don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's just part of human nature when we find something that really works to think that it therefore can work for everything. And that
Mhm.
may not always be the case.
Mhm. For any consumer of fascia information, for our clients who come, hey, I saw this fascia fix doctor saying this and that. What would you suggest them to how to navigate the world of fascia information on social media, of what is out there? What would be your suggestion?
Uh,
Read my book.
well, I was going to say that, Alexa. As a matter of fact, since you're a client of mine, I'll give you a discount. Yeah, but I've had people say to me, well, what about, I saw this online that this can help with my cellulite. And I'm like, yeah, but that same person said that cellulite was a calcification of your superficial fascia. That's not a thing that actually happens. In fact, it would be really bad if that happened.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes, you have to be careful when you're languaging those things. Um, I've had people come to me they talk about how their fascia is locked down. They did this and now their fascia locked down. And I'm like, well, where did you get that information from? Because that's not something that just suddenly happens. That's a slow evolution over time. And it's a very tricky balance one-on-one, because you don't want people to feel bad, or you don't want them to feel like they've made a mistake that they shouldn't have because they believed something that they wanted to believe that seemed trustworthy. And they're coming to me because they assume I'm trustworthy. So,
Mhm.
I'm hoping this book really, as I said, sets a baseline
Yeah.
for everybody to respond to one way or the other.
Mhm. Yeah, it does set the baseline because, as I said, you're teaching us how to approach the information by the way how you're wording things and also how you weigh things up and compare them. So you're talking about what the fascia information says or what the research says, and sometimes you're even referring back to YouTube videos and says, "I have a bone to pick with this video." So you're showing your way of critically viewing things as well.
Hmm.
It's and
Hmm.
it's important, and I think you do this right at the beginning. You say, "Please read this book from the beginning to the end." It's of course I skipped. I went straight to the movement section, but I
Of course you
these
did. Of
first
course you did.
the first sentence stayed with me, so I went back and I read from front to back. And
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
was helpful because you were moving through, you're weaving things together. It's a beautiful piece you have created there. And coming back to the word being, what did you say? What they are saying? They're blocked or something. They
Their fascia's locked down.
locked down.
Yeah,
Yes.
locked. It's locked.
So they have to read now then the little story you tell about Eric, little Eric.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So he has the right
Hmm.
wording for that. So I loved this, how you bring in your stories with your clients, and there's some really staying with me. So reading it from front to back also gives you a little storyline, and it makes it more memorable.
It's great.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because it's woven within storytelling,
But
and
see that, and that's exactly what I want, Alexa.
yeah,
I want people like you to be able to say, well, here's why this is this way, and
yeah,
explain it to them. Not, it's this way because this guy who wrote this book said so. If that's your
mhm,
answer, then I failed.
yeah,
If you can tell them your understanding of it in your own words from my
mhm,
book, then that's a success.
yes.
And that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea.
And I think that's what you've done a fantastic job with in this book.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so glad that it connected with you.
whilst we're talking about your book now, here at the beginning of this book, and I love this. This was such a beautiful little story. And you're describing how your mother applied alcohol swabs onto the aching back of your father. And you wrote, while my parents were never particularly physically demonstrative towards each other, and a word like massage was never used, I'm sure she was doing some of that too. What I do recall in those moments was a tenderness and a vulnerability with each other that I rarely saw otherwise. I think I perceived it as care, as love. It's amazing that things that influence and shape our lives from such early age. Fascia is something that has helped shape you from an early age. I love this little story. It's so beautiful. Tell me about those moments, and tell me about your how this may have influenced where you got to.
Well, you know, we were, I don't want to give the impression that I grew up in a super repressed environment,
Yeah.
but we weren't one of those real physical families. So I was just in Greece in May, and one of the things that I loved about Greece and Greek culture is it's very physical. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I'm walking across the street and here's a guy going to empty a garbage can and he doesn't see me and he's like, "Hey, you okay? You all right?" You know, they're like this, and it's great. It's like if that happened here in the States, you're like, "What was wrong with you?"
Yeah.
So we weren't like super like we never talk about our feelings, but we
Mhm.
weren't Greek. We were closer though to the more the more repressed spectrum.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's just like you know, I always in the book I talk about the instinct to heal.
Mhm.
I talk about having a natural inclination towards touching other people to fix things.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's that natural when we hurt ourselves. Oh, oh, ow, ow. You know, we there is whatever that is that's built in us to, you know, to touch or feel what's going on where we just injured ourselves. Part of that's also probably just a check to make sure we haven't injured ourselves too much. But I've often wondered, well, where did that come from? Why did I have this? Why, when I was in school for television production, and we would on a Friday afternoon, we would circle the chairs in the editing room and we would all like massage each other's shoulders at the end of the week in production school. And, you know, and there was somebody in that school who like, oh, I give really good foot rubs. You want to foot rub? Sure. Oh, show me how to do that. And after bouncing into a bunch of different careers, television production, advertising, funeral home, a few other things like over, you know, in my late teens to mid 20s, and nothing was really sticking. Nothing was really satisfying me. And I thought, you know, I there's not a story in the book, but I worked with somebody in an advertising firm who I didn't know it at the time, but they were one of the most unhealthy individuals I've probably ever met.
Mhm.
And it was just like, oh, your hand's cramped. Okay, here, let me do something about that. And back in those days, I didn't know a deltoid from a diaphragm. You know, I mean, I had those pictures in my head, you know,
Yeah.
of what the muscle man looks like, but I didn't really know, you know, I didn't speak the language of anatomy. I didn't know anatomy. But I could feel where things were off and I could feel where they connected and I could feel them soften. I just had this sense of touch. And it's just, where did that come from? Where did I get
Mhm.
that instinct to do that from? And that's the only thing that made sense to me is that has to be where it came from because
Yeah.
it's not like I saw it somewhere or you know, oh God, I did X, Y, and Z, and this person healed me, so I trashed my career and I went to learn what they do so I could, you know, I didn't have one of those, you know, on the
Yeah.
road moments like that. So when I think about where did this come from, it has to be the story that you just read.
Yeah. It's a lovely story. It hooked me. There were another few moments where I laugh or where I was deeply in the story, and all of a sudden there's a little sentence and it's just funny. Like you bring some humor in it, and you just tickled my brain for a moment, and I just kind of woke up from just being in the specific story. I think somewhere you said the 70s were wild, man, and I was just like, what did he just write? Like it was, it was just like, it was, okay.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
that
yeah.
beautiful. And that's as a trained high school teacher and even an educator as a teacher, I
Hmm.
know that laughter, when you learn with, you know, your lips upwards, smiling, you learn better.
Absolutely. And thank you for reinforcing my belief that that's the case, that when you're laughing, you're learning. And I think it's important too. We tend to, one of the things that I really enjoy about working with people is being able to be real with them. And part of that is having a sense of humor. That doesn't mean making jokes about their situation or their circumstances. But not being so serious all the time, and it's like it instantly, because people come in and, as I said, I work at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, at the Center for Integrative Medicine. And there's a certain je ne sais quoi that comes along with that. And if I was just, somebody working at a gym or this or that, people come in with certain expectations. So they have this expectation, and I wear scrubs because they're comfortable. I used to be really like, oh, you wear scrubs, aren't you cute? And then during COVID, because like, I'm going to wear a nice shirt. I charge a lot of money. I'm gonna dress for it. I'm going to look professional. But then during COVID, our supervisor was like, dress comfortably, because when you get home, clothes got to go right in the wash. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do the scrubs. I never thought I'd do it, but I'm doing the scrubs. And our first day back, our clinic was open in like mid-May of 2020, and we never closed. So we worked through all that. And my buddy Trish, who's one of the acupuncturists there, the first day back, she looked at me and she said, "You are never going back to what you used to wear." I said, "What?" She said, "You look too damn comfortable." And she's right, because what we do is very physical,
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, so there's that certain professionalism that comes with that, and you want to meet, and you want to be professional, but you need to be real. People want to feel like you're a real person, and that you're on this, like we are right now. Yes, I have knowledge, information, and skills that you need, but I'm right here with you. I'm not up here.
Yes.
And for me, humor has always been a good way to do that.
Yeah. And you don't need to lose depth, even though you're funny, or you have a lighthearted approach to teaching and sharing information.
Yeah. And, I work with a lot of people in chronic pain, and if they can laugh, there's hope. It's like, if you can find that funny bone, it's like, it's like, that's great. And I try to, I've learned over the years, I've made a lot of mistakes in 3 decades, as my friend Robert Schleip would say, usually out of enthusiasm, I have made these mistakes. So you learn to kind of like read people, kind of see where they're at. You kind of know, you just get a sense for where to go. And I guess that spills over into the writing, and having a good editor. And I was lucky too, when I wrote Fascia, What It Is and Why It Matters. I had a really great first publisher, and they let me leave the jokes in that. There was one joke. They said that one has to go. And I thought, I thought you were going to say that. But they left the rest of it in. And I was really happy about that, because the stuff gets really serious, and it can be really tedious and really dry. You just, every once in a while, you said, oh, it kind of woke you up a little bit. And then that's great. That's why I do it. And then you remember it.
And I feel that people who are involved in fascia research, I think of Robert Schleip. I've met him in person in Germany at a conference, and I've listened to podcasts with him, and I saw him live a few times as well. But other people at the Fascia, I was in Berlin as well, and I felt a lot of people in the fascia
in
world.
2018. How did we not meet?
I don't know.
Right,
I was too starstruck seeing all these people.
Oh yeah, right. No, I get it.
But I feel everybody is very approachable. Everybody is has a very lighthearted approach, and as I said, without losing the depth and the interest and the seriousness of it, people are still in the fascia community. I feel like they're all aiming for having a good time as well, whilst exploring, whilst communicating, whilst sharing information and meeting each other.
I agree.
Yeah. Do we already know where the next Fascia Congress is?
I haven't heard a thing.
I don't think so.
It's not going to be, it's not going to be till 2028.
Okay.
So I assume, since the last one was in North America, that the next one will probably be in Europe. Could be in South America, could be in Brazil. But this is just speculation on my part. I have no insider information.
That'd be interesting. Let's go to the time where you were training as a teacher for anatomy trains. I have been in that same situation, and I love the story that you And I think everybody can relate to this in some way or the other, where you were sitting in a rental car with 3 other people and you were glad to be in sunny Florida because that meant I could hide behind my sunglasses. I was gripped by imposter syndrome. I've since learned that imposter syndrome is often a sign of personal growth, stepping out of our comfort zone and pushing at our edges. I didn't know about this phenomenon at the time, and honestly, I'm not sure it would have helped if I did. My companions were 2 senior teachers and Tom W. Myers. Tom Myers, author of The Anatomy Trains. How do you see imposter syndrome now? Because you are obviously have grown naturally talking about fascia, and I myself know I am learning about fascia. I teach about fascia, and I always, speaking to you, for example, or with other people who are way deeper and further in the journey, learning and teaching about fascia, I do have the feeling sometimes I get almost frozen. I'm scared to share things because I feel like I do not know enough.
One of my favorite stories about that involves another Tom Finley. So for those of you who don't know who Tom Finley is, he and Robert Schleip were the people who created what became the Fascia Research Society and put on the first Fascia Research Congress in Boston in 2007. Tom was a doctor of physical medicine and rehabilitation. He also was a certified Rolfer and also a certified structural integrator. They're 2 different trademarks. But he had all that under his belt too, but he could also order MRIs and da, 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 da. Um, he, he was a very dear, silly, quirky, brilliant man who also did not suffer fools. So like once we started to Venn diagram a little bit, again, that imposter syndrome thing started to come up. And to answer 2 questions here. So one is I'm realizing that when I'm having to tread water, when I'm having to work a little harder, I'm probably where I need to be as opposed to just coasting. But I was with Tom. It was late 2011. We were doing something in an osteopathic school in Harlem, and we were driving back to his house. And the Fascia Congress was in March of 2012, and I had already secured the contract to shoot the videos for the Congress. So this was a big deal. I had done some anatomy trains and section videos. I had done some things in Germany with Robert, but this was like, I can't F this one up. It's like there's no cut. Can we do that again? Could you start back with the other slide? Because somebody knocked into the camera and it was bad. So I'm pretty nervous. Like I know I can pull it off, but I mean, I actually went out and bought a second camera so that if I had a failure with the first camera, I could switch. But also, like, I needed to prepare for every possible contingency, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm in the car with Tom Finley, and he says, we're getting. I had to read all the papers that were submitted for the first 2 congresses and decide what we're accepting and what we're not accepting. And I've watched the videos from the first 2 congresses probably a half a dozen times each. And here we are getting ready to do the 3rd one. And I think maybe I understand half of what happened at the first 2.
Yeah.
And this is somebody who's right up there with Robert Schleip saying, there's a whole lot I still don't know. And I'm like, damn, I'm hard on myself. Why am I being so hard on myself? And that, you want to talk about that, that to me was another epiphany. That like, not that I don't have to work harder, that I have to coast, but I don't need to be so hard on myself. And we had a guest that year, Rolf Reed was his name, and he had to deal with more the fluid aspects of fascia, what happens when there's swelling because those collagen bonds break. It was a very serious, very academic presentation. And unfortunately, he refused to be on camera. So that never happened. Because you have to, when you're doing those things, there's 2 things that happen. You have to get the individuals to sign off that they're okay being taped, and you have to get them to share their slides with you.
Yeah.
Which is like getting into the Vatican. vaults, because also sometimes in these conferences they're talking about things they haven't published yet, which
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
excited about. So
Okay.
those have to, there's all these little things you have to do to be okay. And Rolf was having none of it. He's like, nope,
Mhm.
none of it. But the paper that got him the speaker thing, Tom talked about staring at a diagram in that paper for an hour before he figured out what it was trying to say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, because like you're fucking brilliant, dude.
Yeah.
And but I get it. I get it. It's like, somebody once said to me, it's like, so what's a good day for you writing? And I'm like, well, there was this time I was flying from LA to Pittsburgh. Um, and I had just presented at a conference, and this was when I was working on my first book, Alexa. And it was
Mhm.
like in my head. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm on this long flight. I got a window seat. Nobody's bugging me. And I did about 1,200 words 1,400 words in that flight that became the chapter on tensegrity in my first book. And most of it did not change. I just would put little
Yeah.
parens. Yeah, I wouldn't pull myself out to go looking for the reference. I would just put like a big R that I need a
Yeah.
reference here and keep going because I didn't want to break
Wow.
the flow. So that was a good day. And then I think about when it was a Saturday and I spent like 8 hours trying to condense a 42-page paper into maybe 4 paragraphs that made sense. So it really depends on there's to me, particularly when you're writing about science and when you're writing about health,
Mm.
there's no set formula to what's successful or what's good. It's going to take as long as it takes. And
Yeah.
so you can have a really great day. You're like, man, I did enough words for the week here. Or like, oh, I can't believe it took me 8 hours to write 500 words, but they were really good 500 words. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So any aspiring writers out there, um, stick with it. Know when you need to take a break.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you just do. You need to take a break, let your mind wander, do the dishes, whatever. I'm grateful my wife sometimes leaves for the weekend and I can just like sit there in my bathrobe for 8 hours. And then and the next thing I know, it's like Sunday morning and it's like, oh yeah, I should clean up the kitchen. I should do the dishes. I should. And then what I'm doing that suddenly say, oh, wait a minute. Oh, hey, like my brain will just have time to relax. And then suddenly a new idea comes in or something gets put together that I was working on. And sometimes when you're just sitting there trying too hard, you just need to you know, um, another great piece of advice I got was if you're feeling writer's block, you need to ask yourself what you're getting from it.
Mm.
Maybe when you're feeling writer's block, that's just your brain saying, dude, take a break.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we need to. So I hope that answered some of your questions and beyond.
Very much, very much, very inspirational for, yeah, I think I know myself, I get better through practicing and just starting. And I think,
Hmm.
you have written a blog or you have your blog still.
No, 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 no.
No, you don't have that anymore,
No,
but
uh-huh.
did that prepare you for writing the book or the
No,
books?
that's exactly why I did it. Because
Yeah.
back in the mid 20 teens, so we're talking like 2014-ish, um, I had the inkling for my first book. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna do this, and something that you may want to know is I have written all my life.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I didn't publish until 10 years ago, but I have
Yeah.
written all my life. But I thought if I'm really serious about writing a book about this, I need to practice. And
Mhm.
blogs were very popular back then. And
Mhm.
there was a couple that I really liked. And I decided, okay, I'm going to model this blog after those because if I rely on, I needed to have a formula, something
Yeah.
that I could
Yeah.
replicate. So, and what I would do is every Monday uh, from like 10 o'clock until noon or 9 o'clock until 1 or whatever. I would sit in my kitchen. I would get on a stool and I would, looking out the window and I would write and I would take care of all the blog posts for the week and schedule them. And then I was done. And I just,
Wow.
for about a year and a half, 2 years, however long that blog was, that's what I would do every Monday. And sometimes something would happen and oh, I have to tell everybody about this now. And I would just throw one up out there. But people knew, oh, every day and I took Sundays off.
Wow.
Saturday was Saturday matinee. So I would find some YouTube video and I would just put like, okay, here's Saturday movies. Here's Saturday at the movies. Here's Carlos Deco talking about this. Here's Gil Headley doing the fuzz speech. Here's, whatever. And so it wasn't like I was generating everything from me, but I was
Yeah.
finding things to point people to so that it didn't have to be David's deep thoughts
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day. Because that's hard to do.
Yeah.
But like finding something, I kind of just generated my own thing. And I really think I don't know it for a fact. I just know it's probably true. Um, this is a story I've not told in public, Alexa. So when I wrote my first book, I didn't pitch the publisher. The publisher pitched me.
Wow.
I was talking to one of the owners, and I had met them in Germany at the different summer schools, and they kind of knew who I was and all that. Not like, whatever, but we knew each other. It was a tight group in
Yeah.
Germany. And anyway, they were talking about this entry level book that they were looking for on fascia that would just give everybody like, here it is in this aspect, here it is, like kind of, and I'm like, and they looked at different authors and nobody was coming through, and I'm feeling sick inside because like that's the book I want to write, and you're telling me other people are trying, but they're also telling me that nobody's actually turned anything in. And then he just said, "Do you think you could write that book?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, tell me more. Tell me more. How does
Yeah.
that work?" Uh, this wasn't even Zoom. This was a Skype call. That's how old I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I think that maybe they had seen my blog
Yeah.
because you don't get an offer like that out of the blue.
No.
So, to me, that practice really, really paid off.
Amazing, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
feel this is so inspirational. Thank you for sharing this. I know this
Oh,
from
you're
my
welcome.
own. I have a movement membership where I film classes, and I have every week one or two new classes, and it's added up now to over 260 classes or so. And it feels like it's almost becoming a habit now to film these. And it wasn't easy at the beginning to film myself
No.
and teach
Mm.
in a way that people can follow online. And I can now relate to this maybe to my own writing practice. Do you find, because I feel it tempting to use AI in writing, especially I'm a second language speaker and writer,
Hmm.
and I try to stay away from AI as much as I use it for brainstorming, but how would you suggest someone who wants to teach a topic like fascia to gather information and write about it maybe, how to navigate AI and how to not getting too drawn into it?
Yeah. Don't.
Yeah, because you haven't.
um,
You cannot. I
well,
cannot find an inkling of AI voice in your
oh,
book.
thank you,
Like
thank you,
it's,
thank you, thank you very no, thank you very much. And publishers now are getting really, really picky about that.
yeah,
And I think the public is too.
yeah,
And there's a certain style of writing that comes
yeah,
with AI. And once you see it, it's like I see it everywhere now. It's like lots of short sentences,
yeah.
and then another short sentence, and everything feels like it's written like this.
It's not
And
like
what's
this.
the
It's
next
like
piece going
this.
to be? Oh yes, very much. It's like written in ASMR or something like
Yeah.
that. Now I have to be honest. I have used AI very judiciously.
Hmm.
So for example, there is a Google product called Notebook
Hmm.
that I'm very fond of. I want to find something a little more proprietary, like one of the things that like with Claude or other services that you pay for. As
Yeah.
far as I know, then that becomes proprietary to you. When it's
Yeah.
free, they can do anything they want with what you're generating.
Hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not sure
True.
how I feel about that. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But when you're paying for it, ostensibly, at least according to the what you're paying for, it's yours and yours alone.
Yeah.
But Notebook is an analytic tool. So to go back to a metaphor I use several times in the book, to go back to Star Trek, Mr.
Hmm.
Spock had his library computer, and he would ask the library computer questions, and he programmed the library computer so he could question the library computer as if he was, and the library computer could analyze and spit things back out to him that he would then ask more questions of. That to me is really cool.
Yeah.
So, one of the challenges of the new book was in order to really make a book that was going to connect with the general public was there were certain things that had to be in it. There were
Hmm.
certain things that the publisher was like, this has got to be the first thing we did after I sold the book was we completely redid my outline. So
Yeah.
that was interesting to me. It's like, yeah, they bought the book. for reasons, and they had faith in me as a writer for reasons. But they realized that it had to be a certain way in order to really connect with the general public, which was something I didn't know. So I'm grateful to have had that experience. That's the experience I wanted. But it's like, okay, I've got to write about this, and I don't know as much about that. I've got 10 papers to look through. Okay. And I have one of the blessings of being at UPMC. I have access to a medical librarian. Her name's Elizabeth. She's credited in the acknowledgments
She
page.
is. Yeah, I saw this.
And it's like, that's, couldn't do it without you. So she's really good at like getting me abstracts and saying, okay, I found these 20 things. Tell me the ones you want. And maybe out of those 20, I'll pick 10. And maybe out of those 10, there's 6. And maybe out of those 6, so I could feed these papers into Notebook, and I could ask it to analyze certain aspects of these papers and spit me back answers, and it would tell me where it found the answers. And that's critical. So I would go back to paper number 3, page 4, paragraph 5, and see where it got the answer and verified that it actually gave me the answer that it says it found. So if you're going to use AI, it is valuable as a research tool, but you have to verify. Don't just assume because it gives you the answer that you want that it's the correct answer. And I quit using Chat GPT early on and that was Elizabeth who told me about this, and she's like, "Oh yeah, chat hallucinates." And I was not using the paid version, but it was referencing studies that didn't exist.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's bad.
there was like it was. They were talking about like this consensus paper. It was something involving movement or foam rolling or something, or it was some longitudinal study, or something, or one of these compendium papers where we looked at 500 papers and came up with these conclusions. And I'm like, Elizabeth, find me this, and she's like, it doesn't exist. Chat made it up.
Wow. Wow.
So that's when I kicked Chat to the curb, and I hadn't used it that much at that point. So. Use extreme caution. I never use it to write. Though I have like you said, could you take my 10-page CV and condense it into a resume? Okay, I wouldn't have picked that piece of professional experience. But I mean, there are uses for these things. But they're not a substitute for your brain. They're not a substitute for your creativity. It can help you with outlines. It can help you with analytics, but don't let it do your writing for you, because it will show. It won't be authentic. And I really think moving forward that authenticity is going to be the lingua franca.
Yeah.
Of what breaks through. And there's a huge public backlash right now to AI, not to mention the environmental concerns. So I'm not taking pictures of my family and making them look like The Simpsons. I try to use it very, very, very sparingly. Very sparingly.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is also what we know as teachers. I think if you don't really understand something, your teaching can only go so far. And if you learn it and teach a topic, you can only share it to a limit. And you probably also won't have the confidence saying, I do not know, but I know where to look it up. Or this is how far I can tell you. And this is someone else who can tell you. I think to be an effective teacher, you need to somehow embrain and embody your knowledge, and people can sense this.
Embrain. I'm going to use that. I like that. You embrained it. And you need to be comfortable with 3 words. I don't know.
Yeah.
You need to get comfortable with that. And I am fearless about telling patients, I don't know. Now, I have an idea that it might be X, and that's fine, but I don't know, or I don't know, and be comfortable there. And my favorite story about that, I was giving a lecture at University of Florida, and this student asked me if the glia cells had integrin receptors. Okay, so glia cells are cells in the brain. They are not fascia. Somebody put that wrong thought in my head long before the internet. The glia was the fascia of the brain. Not really, but it captured my imagination, and I studied glia for years until I found out from Robert Schleip they are not. like 2 months before I was supposed to give a lecture on it in Germany. I
Oh,
was like,
thank
no,
goodness.
seriously, no, seriously. But I was like, it was 3 months. It was 3 months. But I was like, Robert, thank you. And I thought, you know what? Like Robert wouldn't throw you under the bus.
No.
He liked your premise. He liked where you were going. You just got to dig deeper. You got to dig deeper.
Mhm.
But I was giving this lecture, and the integrins are the cell receptors that are keyed into collagen on microscopic level that are listening for attentional messages in the body. So that's how connected we are all the way down to the cell via our connective tissue matrix. Other, colloquially known as fascia. So anyway, this student in the lecture says, do these brain cells, these really cool brain cells, that outnumber the neurons 9-to-1 in humans, do they have these receptors? And I'm like, wow, that's a really good question. And I'm thinking, they probably do, but I don't know for sure. So I said, you know what? I will look it up on the break and I'll get back to you because I don't know. And so during the break, I looked it up and I found out they do. And do you know where I found that out?
Where?
My own book. My own
Ah,
book. But that's not a piece of information I use every day
yeah,
or every
yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just like so in terms of like being comfortable not knowing things, that to me was the ultimate. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, wow.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. It's like Einstein said, this is why I have all these books, so I don't have to remember everything.
Yeah.
It's okay to have to look things up. Somebody will say, oh, what's a really good way to strengthen that muscle? And I'll pull my Jarmy's book off the shelf and go, let me look that up. Because, I'm not a strength coach,
Yeah.
and I know some things, but it's like, let's pull the book up and look, you're giving people the answer. It's okay if you don't have the answer off the top of your head. They're not going
Mm.
to remember that. They're going to remember that you had the answer and you know
Yeah.
where to look the answer up.
Yeah. And that builds trust too, I think, to be
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
honest. David, before I ask you my last question, I would
Okay.
like you have in the book, I love that you sprinkled in movement homework. So I was sitting in the morning doing my arm
Oh,
movements.
very nice. That's a really good teacup. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like you to, for our viewers and listeners, to share with me, give your clients something that you call the Zen homework. And I really love this.
Oh, okay.
I will take this too for my clients now. I think it's a
Please
fantastic
do.
idea.
Please do.
But can you give us a Zen homework that we can take with us?
Oh, what a good question. What a good question. Well, first, let me explain what Zen homework is.
Yes, please.
Zen homework is about observing. And it's starting to get dark here.
That's
Do I
okay.
need to turn the lights on? Can you
No,
still
it's
see me?
fine.
Is this okay?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
see you.
All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, because it's almost 9 a.m. where you are. It's almost 9 p.m. where I'm at. So
Yes.
anyway, Zen homework is all about the act of observing the self. And obviously it can take many different forms based on the person and their need. When you feel X, observe what you're doing, and see if there's a pattern. Every time I brush my teeth, I feel this thing, whatever it might be. Then that becomes information for them. That becomes information for me, and it helps them develop even more self-awareness, which for me is the secret sauce of all this stuff. Is that the popular word now is embodiment, but and that's what it does. But you have to pay attention. So you want me to give Zen homework for everybody listening right now? That's
Yeah.
crazy because it's like, wow, what do you all need, and what do you need the most now? Um, I okay. So here's the Zen homework. The next time you find yourself feeling agitated, if at all possible, try to do some deep breathing. If it is even more possible, try to do 4-7-8 breathing, which is an inhale for 4, a holding the breath for 7, and an exhale for 8. Now, obviously, if you're in a meeting with somebody or you're at the dinner table and there's a discussion going on that's really damaging your calm, that might be a little hard. But if you're reading a post online that really upsets you, you could probably do that. Okay. And just try to, in that moment, see if you can get calmer, and see if your ability to respond changes. Okay, because that's what we're looking for, is the ability to respond differently. And we live in a world of everybody wants a hot take. Not everything is appropriate. for a hot take. Tom Holland and Zendaya get married. Okay, yeah, that's hot take material. How to reset my nervous system because I'm dysregulated. That's not a hot take. Okay, so we need to have some perspective here. So that's my idea for Zen homework. You really surprised me on this one. This was not in the cheat sheet that you gave me
No.
before this thing, and that was smart, because it would have kept me up all night going, huh? So the but that could you could apply that really to anything, and sometimes agitation is not always bad.
Mhm.
I think we have this idea that we have to be at peace all the time, and I don't know that that's realistic. But if there are certain things that are always pushing our button, it's like, okay, is that something I'm reacting to or something I need to step away from and just not involve myself with anymore? And that's and in our attention economy where we're always being stimulated all the time. Sometimes it's good to say, you know what? I'm going to choose to not do that stimulation anymore. That YouTube channel. Yeah, you know what? That's really just wasting my time. I really like it's become such a habit that I just turn it on and I listen to it. But you know what? It just bothers me more than it doesn't. And I'm not getting anything good from it. So, whatever it might be.
I love that. Thank you.
Okay. So okay. All right. So what's your last question?
What has Fascia helped you connect that once felt separate?
The first word that comes to mind is everything. That's not entirely true. But in my early days as a clinical massage therapist, before I became a fascia specialist, uh, I worked a lot with the Travell-Simons trigger point model, and I had a series of charts that showed the trigger points and their referral patterns, but they were color coded. So it's like, oh, if you have this trigger point here and it's purple, here's these other places that are in purple, and some of them are really far away from this trigger point here. But you might check these places out because they might have trigger points too. And you know what? The chart was really reliable. And I would be doing my body work and I'd find those spots. And like I was the guy who always paid attention to those spots that needed extra attention. And then I would like look at the chart. It's like, how did you know that was there? I'm like, I don't know. But I got really good at understanding those charts and knowing like, oh, if it's here, I should check there and I should check there and I should check, I should find these other places. And I found that more often than not, they worked. And I found that I was getting better than average results. Still some things were eluding me. Why did this person get better in 7 sessions and why did this person take 17 sessions? And why, the consistency was missing. And I didn't really know from fascia back then. I mean, yeah, I knew what it was, but I didn't know, I knew that it existed, but I didn't know how to manipulate it or what its role was in this. Once I did, suddenly then connecting all those dots made a lot more sense. And I was able, and not everybody needs or wants 12 sessions of structural integration, and that's fine. But I can still apply that same logic to helping them with whatever it is they do need. And I can connect those dots for them. And that's what fascia gave me.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, David, for an outstanding conversation. I am very sure that everybody will love hearing us talking. And I would like to ask you, is there anything that you have going on in the next few months, weeks, apart from launching your book? Are you doing a book tour?
They don't really do book tours for books like this.
Oh.
If it catches fire, it might.
Yes.
And that, so right now it's these kinds of grassroots thing that really, I mean, the publisher loves it. I was so happy. I could go on about all the wonderful things they said, but they also said, oh, you got to fix all this stuff here too. So I just want to be really clear about that. And they weren't wrong about it. But they're really behind the book. But they really think, but they really see it as something that they hope will catch fire through things like this. So I could see the possibility of doing a book tour. I mean, we have a lot of independent bookstores here in town. None of them seem to be interested. They're like, this is not the kind of book we do book readings for. I don't know why.
Fascia has a lot of interest. I'm surprised.
I know. So I'm hoping that maybe there will be a delayed book tour. That will happen from this. But right now, there's nothing on the horizon. I've got about a half a dozen podcasts scheduled over the next several weeks.
Right.
There is a television appearance locally that's being floated. that I hope to get on board with. There's some bigger ones out there that haven't manifested yet. I'm looking forward, honestly, Alexa, to take this book. This book was a 3-year project for me.
Mm-hmm.
From getting
Wow.
it from concept to getting it into your hands.
Yeah.
It was it was a saga, and it's not like it was continuous for 3 years, but
Mm-hmm.
it's been a long patch. I have an idea for 2 more, not necessarily about fascia.
Mm-hmm.
One that is, but something very different, and one that is fascia adjacent, but just slightly,
Yeah.
and that's all I'm going to say. I'm turning it over in my head because I want a little bit of a break first. And it's another book. It's a book that I haven't seen out there. It's a book I haven't seen out there, and I want to do things. I don't want to do my version of what somebody else did. I want to do things that I haven't seen. That's mine to do. All right, Alexa, it's been delightful. It's been absolutely delightful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And for everyone who is listening, you will find David's details and where you can reach him and where you can work with him and where you can find him in the show notes. David, thank you so much. And everyone, I see you and hear you next time. Bye. Connective.